Start there, kid.
Um, so if I'm like washing my face and my body, I'm facing the
Sure.
shower. But if I'm washing my hair, I don't like
Oh,
the stream to like go in my face, so face away from it.
That's interesting. I actually
What about you?
forgot. Well, I'm always facing the front, and it's interesting that, you know what? Actually, I'll take that back. I face away from the shower head when I'm lathering, and then when I'm rinsing, I'm facing the shower. So face away.
Yeah,
lather.
just like it depends. It's always in my face if I'm like washing my hair, and it takes a while for me to wash my hair. So
There are people who love standing underneath, like taking a long shower, like a hot shower, and just standing
like
there.
it going all over like your face and your
Sure.
body.
Your privates. And I understand the delight behind it. I
The
just
delight.
can't. I just can't. I get bored. You
You
know?
don't have things that you can think about while you're.
Well, and it's really nice, especially when you get the temperature really hot and you're like, oh, this is great. And especially if you're really cold that day, it's fantastic. But then I'm like, I want to that's why we have a hot tub and there's a TV. So I'm always like watching.
Yeah.
I get bored.
I feel like depends. Yeah, if I'm really cold, like freezing, I could probably stand in the shower for a really long time. 'Cause
But
it
you're a
takes
bath
long.
person,
I
too.
am. I like also taking baths, so I can probably just hang out there and just enjoy myself.
So the bath that we have right now, it's a nice bathtub, though I know it's not going to stay there long because you want something different. And it's just my luck. When there's something that's already nice, you're like, yeah, but
But it's not nice enough.
Well, no, it's not even that it's nice enough. It's that it's not aesthetically what do you want it to be. So like right now, the house came with a really fancy, I think it's a jacuzzi, right? Where it's got the bubbles going through it. And it's deep and it's long and it's got like a reclined back. And it's actually long enough for a 6'2" person as
You've
myself.
never taken a bath there though.
Never taken a bath, and that's where I'm going with this. Every time I hop out of the shower and I'm drying off and I'm looking at that bathtub, I'm always like, I should just take a bath. You know what I'm gonna do? Tonight after work, I'm gonna take a bath. I'm gonna grab myself a glass of red wine. I'm gonna get in there, maybe turn on something on the
But
iPad.
then we have a hot tub.
And then I never do it. I never do it. It's
The
so
only
much
reason
work.
I do it is because, well, there was obviously I've always loved taking baths even before we had a hot tub. But
Is this on record?
I also I also on the record.
On the record. First of all,
I
a little bit-
always love taking baths
a little bit of about me. Love baths.
Just
Okay,
love baths.
I've always asked my friends
from
always,
the beginning
Ask my mom and dad. Always love taking
Always.
baths. It's my thing
since I can remember.
since I can remember.
But for me, it's like I don't want to go to the hot tub by myself, especially if it's like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock p.m.
Why don't you? Which is funny because the positioning of the hot tub, and we have a door from our master bedroom. By the way, it turns out you can't say master bedroom anymore. I guess you're racist.
It's owner's room
Is
or
it?
owner's suite.
Never am I saying owner suite because then you're
That's
gonna be
what
like,
people say.
where?
Yeah.
Dude,
I know.
I sound like a concierge. You're like at a hotel.
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, you might
Or,
enjoy
or
that.
I've heard primary bedroom is the new way to say it.
That sounds British.
It does. Or primary bathroom, they'll say.
Because don't they have like?
And I'm like, well, I feel like the primary bathroom is the guest bathroom, like the powder bathroom, right? I
that
would
is-
call
no,
that the primary
I
bathroom.
agree.
But people, it's getting confusing.
Isn't there in England? Don't they have like primary school? It's called like primary school. No, am I wrong?
It is, yeah.
Kyle, am I wrong in this one?
I think it's called primary school.
Primary school, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Too, though, right?
It's actually called.
which grade?
Like here in the U.S., don't they call like
We don't call it primary school here.
1 through 5 like primary school?
Sometimes people do, yeah. I've
Interesting.
heard it.
This is why I don't sign up for like PTA meetings and
You would not last.
anything school
You
involved.
would
for
not
the
last
kids.
as a PTA moms.
I'm like,
Just
where do I
saying
go for
now.
the primary?
Where's the primary
Oh,
school?
my kid goes to the preliminaries. Like preliminaries.
What?
It's before the main event.
But so the hot tub is like right outside our bedroom. But I just like don't like going there by myself.
And it's actually not only outside of our bedroom that we have an easy access door from our primary bedroom into the backyard, but where the bathtub in the bathroom is positioned directly behind that wall is the hot tub that's actually hugging the side of the house. So it's like you can
But it's
open up the window,
outside.
climb from the bathtub,
bathtub to the
into
hot
the
tub.
hot tub.
You're right.
And you don't do that. And
It's just easier. Like after
you have to wait for it to fill up. How's that easier?
I don't know. It's like a different vibe.
It's a vibe.
I wish I
Kids
went
do
to the
this
hot
thing.
tub more.
Kids do this stupid thing where like they put like finger guns to their the crease of their arm, and then like 2 fingers out like that. And apparently this is called like the vibe. And I don't know because it looks like
The
you're shooting up
vibe.
heroin.
It does.
It's a vibe.
The
You know what I'm talking about? Do you know? No.
No.
Am I the
don't
only one
either.
that's like well
You're
versed?
the only one that watches TikTok.
That
Oh my gosh.
you didn't even do it accidentally. You didn't do it on purpose. You did it accidentally.
I'm telling you, it's the way that word is with my accent. I cannot say it.
Oh yeah, your accent is overpowering.
I'm like,
You're
why
right.
is it so hard for me to say TikTok? Like I have to think about it.
And you sound like you're a little slow in the head when you slow down, like
Yeah,
enunciate.
that's what I'm saying. It's like I try not to because of that. People are like, "Why are you saying it so slow?" But if I just don't even think about it, it always comes out TikTok.
No, now if you were well versed in TikTok or frequented it,
If I said it,
you could
more.
say talks. You could just say on the talks.
Is that what people are
That's
saying?
where
On the
content
talks.
creators. Yeah. So if you're like, oh, I saw something. I'm like, yeah, I saw it on the talks.
Oh, I'll just say that.
No, you
because
can't because
I'm going to.
It's
I
like
don't care.
me using the word that I just heard and I'm using it in the wrong form.
I'm not gonna use it in the wrong form.
In fact, you know what? One word I used. What was it? 2 days ago, I was on a conference call with a brand, and I used a word that I've heard readily.
Did you say it wrong?
I didn't say it wrong, but after I said it,
What did you say?
it was premise. I used the word premise. And premise to me is one of those words that I kind of think I know what it means, but I used it completely in the wrong.
How did you use it?
Like, because premise is essentially the conclusion of an idea, right?
No,
or
the
like
premise is like the
point,
overall
yeah.
point.
Yeah, the point of the idea. But I use it to describe like as if something is an example. Like I said, so if we want to stick to, the example of the premise that we're working with. And then I said it. When I said it, I felt really good about myself. And I was like, wow, I'm
so smart. I'm so smart.
I'm getting a little bit harder on myself nitpicking how I speak. And I've noticed that I'll rabbit trail around certain things, trying to articulate something as opposed to just being more selective in the words that I want to ask.
Yeah, but I feel like everybody's like that.
Sure, but when you make YouTube videos, when you make podcasts, like you start analyzing yourself more than others. And I've also learned that I look away when I'm trying to do that rabbit trail.
Yeah.
And I almost caught myself right now. I almost
were
did
just
it.
starting to
Because
do
you know what
it.
I was going to do? I was looking away, but I was going to describe what I'm meaning by an example. And that's what I always do.
But I like that because sometimes people will say something like very directly and you don't really know what they mean. I mean, that happens to everybody, but
Can
I like
you
that.
use an example?
So like when you and I are talking, no, but I like that you give an example because it gets people, like it almost makes the point, you bring it home. Like people can understand it way better than just saying like directly something like, so I like, or you ask a
I like
question.
lamp.
Yeah, I like lamp. This is why. For example, you see that lamp? I really like it. No, I think I like that, and I wish I did that more because sometimes I'll say something and I could tell people are not really like following what I'm saying.
I think I sound dumb when I have to explain everything with an example.
I like that you do that, and I also like that when you ask a question, you always give your own example when you ask it. And you do that a lot with interviews or like when we have people on. And I think I like that because it gives people something to go off of versus just answering the question. Maybe they don't know how, but when you give an example, they're like, oh, it kind of like sparks something, in your memory or.
But here's where the problem starts happening. When I ask a question, catch myself, and give them an example of what I meant by this question, by the time they answer the question, I have spoken much longer than they have.
They'll answer it in one sentence, but you went on for like 10.
So I'll be like,
for example,
what's your favorite color? Like, for example, like I have a few colors I like. I like black, but sometimes I like red, and white really looks good on cars.
Yeah.
And then they go, it's blue.
Blue.
Okay.
That's true. But you know what? They feel better about saying blue after you gave them a few examples of why you love all the colors you love.
And then I keep looking at the podcast. I was like, why am I talking way more than this guest?
People enjoy it.
Sometimes
You like to fill the silence. That's why.
That's a good way of actually looking at it as well. I've noticed also, like, I'll pitch Kyle an idea of like maybe like an idea that we're gonna make something, we're maybe shoot a certain way or a feeling, and I will start articulating to him the gist, and then I will rabbit trail around it just so I can realize that I think I just confused them even more.
But you're trying to explain yourself.
And I end up using, after all of that, I end up saying things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you do say that. You know what I mean? And he just goes, yeah.
Then he's really nice because he'd be like, no, yeah.
You
No,
say that last part
I get
again?
it.
Yeah. Do you? Because I feel like you might do this, but I'm not 100% sure. I feel like you also do the rabbit trail because sometimes you don't really know what question you're asking yet or what you're going to say.
Scott.
Yeah. Do you feel like that?
Sometimes I start a sentence and I don't know where it's going. I just hope I find it somewhere along the way.
Do you feel like that?
Yes. I speak
You like
for the sake of speaking.
Yes, you start speaking, but like it's crazy to me how quickly ideas come to you. Even like when you're starting a question and you don't really know what you're going to ask yet, but you've already started it.
Yeah.
I've seen you do that so many times, but I'm like, how does that question come to him like while he's talking? I can't do that.
Oh, interesting.
I have to already have a question in mind or think of it before I'm like already starting to speak. If I'm starting to speak and I don't know what I'm saying, I just
Well, I think
nothing comes out.
it's a nice way of you saying that you're not an idiot. Like that's actually a handy
I think it's a great skill. I wish I had it.
skill set.
Because then I could fill these awkward silences that sometimes happen, and I have a really hard time doing that.
But you're reserved, and so when it's time to speak, I don't know why I keep looking to the side.
There's a ghost.
And this is what I mean. Like I have to like stare off to think, I guess.
Everybody does that though, because there's like a scientific fact. You can only
Don't bring science to this.
You can only hold somebody's eye contact for like 2 or 3 seconds before it starts getting awkward. So
That's
you actually
true.
have to break that eye contact in order for like a conversation to happen. Isn't that weird? Where like people say you always have to make eye contact with people because if you're not making eye contact, it's weird too. But there's only a certain length of time before it starts getting like super awkward, before you're having a staring contest.
Where do you look? Because I know what you mean. There is a
Yeah. Sometimes it's just like very slight. You just kind of look away and then look back. And then
So,
it breaks that.
I'm looking
time.
at one of your headphones. Can you see that I'm looking at your headphones as opposed to like being engaged?
A little bit.
Oh, see.
But it's because you pointed it out.
Okay, now I'm gonna look right between your eyes, right at the bridge.
Right
of your
at my
nose.
pimple right here.
Oh,
Do you see it?
No, I don't see it.
It's like
Well,
very
if you
little.
keep rubbing it, I'm gonna see it.
I haven't. I
You're
didn't touch it.
so notorious for popping your own pimples, and the majority. I'm not gonna generalize, but the majority of the gals have this fascination, and I know it's
It's like
majority.
that meme I sent you.
And the reason I know it's a majority, I don't know the meme you're talking about.
So there's a meme. I sent it to you, and it's like a girl, and she has a pimple in her face, and it says, "Oh gosh, this looks horrible." And then she pops it, and there's like a blood all over her face. She goes, "Oh, that's better."
That's bad. And I'm only generalizing because the amount of females that are fascinated by Dr. Pimple Popper on Instagram. And so generally the people who are fascinated by those are probably also love popping back pimples off their spouses or significant others.
If they'll let them, I mean.
Where does that come from? Like, I don't understand.
It's the satisfaction of like getting something out. Like I'm the same with splinters. It's not like it's just pimples. I like
Hey,
that. Like
I have something you can help get out. I wanted to throw that in there before we
I
lost
knew that was coming too.
So why?
Knew it was coming.
So,
But like splinter. So like if I have a splinter,
Okay.
one of the kids has one, I'm like, please let me take it out. I just love that. Like,
by the way, you're not good at taking
satisfaction.
splinters out.
I'm not great.
You're not. No, you're not.
I'm not.
Great means like
I'm mediocre.
Yeah, you're like, I'm taking classes like to improve my technique.
Why?
Because the boys lose their mind every time you do it.
Oh,
and you
like
take-
I'm not like easy on
You're
them.
not easy. Your success rate is really low.
No, I can get the splinter out if they would let me. The problem is they just whine and cry. Oh, it hurts. I'm like, I haven't even touched you yet.
No, I don't know about that.
And you're
how's
the
it-
same.
Yeah, well, but I think you do that like I'm gonna be gentle, and next thing you know, you're wrestling with him for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Versus me is like grab your finger, really like let's like taking a Band-Aid off. Again, use an example to explain something.
See, but then I got it.
You got it.
It made more sense to me all of a sudden. You said like taking a Band-Aid off.
If we circle back to that original conversation, I think I think of myself as a dummy if I have to speak like that. Like it feels like I have a limited vocabulary, And when
It's
I have
interesting that you feel like that way, because I feel the opposite. I feel like that's a really handy tool to have.
but to be straight to the point and quick and swift about it, I think that's where the skill set of conversation really begins to unfold.
No, I mean, there's many skill sets. That being direct is always awesome, but to give examples to make people feel comfortable
Now,
in a
examples are
conversation.
nice when people go, "What do you mean?"
Yes.
And to me, I like that sometimes. Maybe if I, well, now that I'm
Like when
thinking
people
about it.
ask you that, or when
Yeah.
somebody else gives you an example.
Well, like if I'll ask somebody something and they go, "What do you mean?" I'm like, well,
And my problem is I don't know how to explain what I mean.
you don't.
What do you mean by that? Let me think about that.
Interesting.
Because I'm like, I already said what I mean. I don't know how you want me to explain that even
Do you call
more.
him an idiot right after that?
Commoners.
Commoners. I do want to. I do want to like broaden my
Mm-hmm.
arsenal of words that help you get directly to the root
The
of
point.
the point.
To the point. I think though, also being, I mean, I've lived in the States since I was 3, but I feel like because we spoke 2 languages for so long, it's like you're limited in both languages, because even though people say, you know, when you are bilingual, duolingual, when you're bilingual or whatever, can speak multiple languages, they're always like, people are just so smart when they're bilingual. But I feel like it was almost a little bit of a hindrance to me, because I was learning both at the same time and didn't get like excel at either. You know what I mean? Until I probably went to college. Do you know what I mean? But it was like I learned just the basic words in one language and same in the other. And then over time I started, you know, getting better at English and worse at Ukrainian. And so that like ended up what is it called? Like the not level being as level, but for a long time I just feel like it was just I learned just enough to know English and just enough to know Ukrainian.
So
Do you feel that way?
I definitely agree with you. I don't know if I actually like stopped and thought about it. It does make sense, but I also think when people say that people who know another language somehow might either come off, or perhaps there's more, I'm going to use the wrong terminology, but like intelligence somehow associated with intelligence.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I think it's because the only aspect of that I'll agree with is that you're I guess you're doing mental exercises. You're straining your brain.
That's true.
And
I think that's what people mean is.
Yeah. Like you're having to fire different neurons, right? So like one side of the brain is like English, and then the other side of the brain's like, well, okay, how do I articulate this? This
Especially if you can easily go back and forth between the both languages.
Now you and I are not neuroscientists, so
Well, speak for yourself, but
you're first a neuroscientist, then a pimple popper. Like that's why.
That's why you're only good at it.
That's why you're only good at it, not great. But I definitely agree with you. I think that when what's that saying? Master of none. Right? What's that saying? Jack of all trades, master of none. But then I recently, again through the power of the TikToks, I've learned the extended version. Did you know there's an extended version of that saying? The Jack of all trades, but a master of none, right? But there's an extended version. Like it doesn't end there.
Is it like a poem or
well,
something?
I don't know if it's a nursery rhyme or what, but it's a Jack of all trades, but a master of none. But something is better. A master of none is better than a master of one. Right? So like, did I butcher that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think you butchered that.
Did I butcher it?
I have no idea.
But so the idea of it is, let me use an example. The idea is because the first part of it, what I thought is you're a jack of all trades, but you're not a master at anything, so you suck, right? But the latter part of that verse is you would rather know a little bit about a lot of things as opposed to a lot about one thing, and then you can no longer participate in conversations or skill sets. So like if you are a master neurosurgeon, but you don't know how to change your own but you don't know how to change your own oil, that's where we start becoming problems. But if you know how to change your own oil, you have a general understanding how the human brain might process thoughts and ideas and dreams, and you know how to make a mean quiche, like you're not a master of of one. But
yeah, that makes sense. I never really thought about it that way. I always thought like it was like a hindrance that you're just like versed in a little bit in a lot of different things.
that as a hindrance. But
I
think
guess
about
to me,
conversations
language wise, I didn't. I mean, other things. Yeah, I don't know. I think, but that's true. You can't just be great at everything.
You absolutely cannot. No.
And if you're only great at one thing and that's the only thing you know, yeah, you can't relate to people.
I look at it from the perspective of conversations, and I'm starting to appreciate the idea of conversations, not through podcasting, but just from general like interactions as adults. Because when you're a teenager, when you're in your like late 20s, conversations, you don't cherish them as much. I think you cherish moments and feelings. Right. So like we are at a sandbar during Cancun.
Events.
Right.
Like
we
that.
feel like life is invincible, or we are the peak of our performance and nothing hurts, and you always think about the future. You're not thinking about the future. You think about for today.
Yeah.
And so I think when you're younger, you're focused on feelings and emotions and memories in the present. But as you're getting older, you're finding yourself being in conversations more and more, and the power of conversation is like you cherish it. So like I really look forward to when we have dinner guests over, and we have the after dinner cocktails, and we're just hanging out with the company and having our own conversations. I really like that, and it's weird. I think it's maybe a mark of like maturity, but
I think so. Maturity, age,
other words, yes. Growth, development, experience,
love,
resume,
black,
right? But
white,
you start
green.
really noticing that when you're an adult and you're amongst like, and you're like I said, there's this like moment, right, that you've had your dinner guests, you had a great meal, you're hanging out, and you're just like you're spending hours of conversation, and you really feel a disconnect when you can't contribute anything to that topic.
Yeah,
and it's not an expert topic. It could be like space travel.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
if
did you hear that, Elon Musk is trying to commercialize space, travel? And then you start conversing about centrifugal force, right? Like around like the planets around Earth. Then you start talking about, global warming. Like if you haven't read like briefly small articles in passing, at the very least of
or
going,
even being interested in it enough to ask questions.
Correct. You ever met those people where like you can't squeeze a conversation out of them? Like they're just, it's so interesting where they have no interest in even just like scanning an article title.
Yeah.
They never go like, oh, I've heard about that. And then, because sometimes that's all you need is for you to be like, oh, I've heard about that. And somebody says, oh, yeah. So,
and then you explain it.
And you explain it, and then you're kind of sharing back and forth. But there's people out there who just really don't care. And you're like, what do you do?
I think it is a sign of just growth and maturity, because it's like I'm interested in what you're learning. Are you interested in like what I'm learning or what I like or, am, I don't know, involved in?
Learning is interesting. That's such a dummy statement, but
learning is so interesting.
Learning is
interesting and good.
As an adult, I think learning is interesting. And the more, how, again, this is what I hate. I have to go back with an example. I wish I could just say, learning is, this is what's fascinating about learning. And then if I need to elaborate, I could elaborate a bit. But like here I go straight before even finishing the sentence. I go, let me explain.
Let me explain. Learning is, here, let me explain. For example. You should just start saying that. Learning is, for example.
That's a good one, actually. Imagine me being like a teacher in school. Yeah. All right, today we're going to learn about logarithms. Okay. Imagine you're walking.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I need to calculate the. Well, okay, let me take it back a little bit. Yeah. Let's say you need to know.
Yeah. Okay, you're not walking anymore. You're running.
Right. Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I feel like you'd be a good teacher though, because you could explain stuff really well.
I don't know about
and I think
that.
a lot of that is that your mind is that reverse engineering mind where you could explain it really well because you can kind of see where the other side of it or how it starts. I'm just like, okay, very like linear, I guess.
I think you're really gracious by saying I would be a good teacher, because I don't think so. But any example I would use maybe is because I don't learn well.
You don't learn good?
I don't learn good in terms of the way my brain processes information. A lot of things, and most people, things have to be simplified and dumbed down, but I need to understand the whys of something before I understand the rules of it. And when the why is answered and solved for in my brain, or I'm sorry, not the why, but the how and the whys, then it makes it easier for me to come up with an examples to another person.
Right.
So if I was to explain to you how a carburetor works, I would probably start about talking about how a vacuum would be created by having a pressure coming out of one nozzle, right? But the way my brain interprets it, I have to be able to come up with examples.
Which I think is, a great skill to have.
Sure, maybe, yeah. I mean,
I think you're being too hard on yourself. I think it's always a win when you can explain something by giving examples, especially because so many people are visual. It's like, oh, okay, I understand that now.
Well, I look at it as a lack of good quality education, or maybe interest in the quality of education. So like if I had a handful of words, do
you want me to start doing like what the boys do?
Sight words,
spelling tests,
oh.
And then like the vocabulary where you have to like remember what it means.
No, but with me, my test would be like, here's a sentence, articulate the sentence in a shorter, using less words.
Using less words.
Yeah.
Okay, instead of 50, let's try 10.
I'm gonna use premise as much as I can.
Premise. Oh my god.
Premise example.
Yeah.
But going back to learning as an adult, I think we take it for granted, or took it for granted when we were younger, that now knowledge is such a powerful thing, where I find myself now finding resources of learning, of finding great teachers on, Audible or any kind of audio books to explain history. Like learning about the Comanche Native Americans, learning about the Cold War, learning about
the things
Marxist
that we were like
socialist
taught
movements.
but don't remember.
Right.
We like remember the words, but like what does that actually mean?
You spent a chapter.
I feel the same way.
You spent a chapter in middle school, talking about the Turkish Empire, but then now as an adult, I go, I want to know as much as I can about the Ottoman Empire. I want to learn about
like the whys behind like the things that happened.
And then that all adds to these conversations.
Yeah.
I actually find, and I've shared this many times about the stand-up comedians that I like listen to. It's an escapism, but these are very successful stand-up comedians who've like figured out a way how to make a lot of money, and their life is already in order, and they're just living life, enjoying doing things they like to do, and they take care of their health. The people that I listen to, so it's kind of like going back. It's these people who have figured out life, and they figured out things that are worth it and are not worth it. These are the people that I've learned from cutting out cancerous, toxic relationships in your life, cutting those out. These are the people that I hear things like the benefits of this, like endorphin release after working out and mental clarity. So you keep adopting one thing after another, and next thing you know, you're like, oh, I started realizing some things are baloney and some things are important, and I should do those things that are important and make me a better person.
Right.
And so the ideas that they're talking about now is, as adults, taking classes, not like academically, but like learning new things. So one of the guys is like a huge stand-up comedian. He's taking piano lessons. And he's not because he wants to like start doing, doing Mozart or anything. He's just like, I love the idea of learning something new and constantly being uncomfortable. I was like, oh, that was really fascinating.
Growing in something that, doing something hard even.
Correct.
That you've never done.
Learning another language.
Because
playing
it's
piano.
anything that's challenging, that's not just like your daily easy, oh, I already know how to do this, I'm really good at this, I'm going to keep doing that. That's what grows your, mentally, like your mind.
I love things. Now, I don't know if I'm there where I'm like, I want to go learn a new language or play the piano. But and besides, I took piano for 3 months when I was 10, and I think I'm fine. Okay. I think I have a good solid core base to really pull from. So I think we're good. Right. So, and Kyle already shared some more stories about our time as musicians on the recorder. So, I mean, we're there as well. We're
I
talking
mean,
about
do you
starting
remember like doing like like on the recorder? I think it was like 5th grade.
Stepping up,
No,
stepping
it was
down, then
hot cross
skip.
buns.
Hot cross.
Hot cross buns.
Kyle, does this ring a bell?
Yeah.
Oh man, look at him.
5th
Do
grade.
you see a sparkle in his
Yeah.
eye?
Oh
got
man,
memory
I
lane.
remember you like pay for it and like bring it home.
What
and
is it?
Practice recorder.
Oh, you pay for
Uh-huh.
the recorder in practice. Yeah.
Mhm.
What an annoying instrument for the
It's
house.
so annoying. Why did we start with those?
If our kids had
I love that
come
our
home-
kids get to start with keyboarding. I think that's so cool.
Do you know what's even a dumber instrument that I did in Russia, which I don't think you start with recorders there, is that stupid xylophone. You know, it's a
Yeah,
thing.
the things that kids play with for
Ding,
fun.
ding,
Yeah.
ding. With the little metal
Like at
plates.
school, they make you start with it?
Well, I think we did it like at church or something like that. But and we would
The
like,
triangle.
because you imagine practicing like at home. That
On
would
a
be
xylophone?
miserable if I keep hearing the xylophone.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my gosh, with the
ding,
boys?
ding.
No thanks.
Yeah.
I think the piano is just like such a staple. I think in a lot. I don't know, a lot of homes.
Oh, you know, it would be even more annoying instrument for a child.
That's what you keep thinking about.
Yeah, drums.
Never coming into our house.
Drums.
Never.
And we're not talking about, because you can get away with like
Let's-
electric drums, you know, where it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
headphones on.
With
And
the
you-
real ones.
the real drums, especially when you're garbage at drums, when you're just
They're
learning.
never coming in our house. I had a friend in high school that played the drums, and his parents were so tired of it. They put his drums in, like, they converted the shed of their, like,
Oh,
next to their house
that's smart.
as, like, the drum, his little studio.
And now the neighbors have to put up with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just leave the door open. Oh, no. Yeah. Not coming into our home.
Do you have the spark of like wanting to like advance, just, I don't know if it's education, but it's just like learning
I
new
do.
or more things.
I think I didn't for a while because I was just comfortable and also busy, and that it was like,
oh,
I
I
don't
get it.
want
You're
like
a mom. Yeah.
another thing. 'Cause I'm a mother. And just like being sleep deprived, I feel like I was just like, I just need to like get through this day.
Mhm.
But I feel like you kind of sparked that in me because you would like talk about a topic and I'm like, I don't know anything about this. And so like it made me interested in it. But also,
What topic?
I don't know anything. Aliens.
Aliens. So you
I
doing
need
your
to know more about aliens.
Yeah. But because I think I'm going to argue with you about on this point, because I think you like the idea of learning new things, because I haven't heard you be like, because the content that you're usually consuming, you're reading fictional books,
I
right?
haven't read in a long time.
Right. You're reading fictional books on your Kindle. You're listening to murder mystery podcasts.
It's true crime. It's different.
Okay. True crime podcast. So like, I mean, you work out a lot, so, but like, where are you ingesting moments of like?
Well, I started listening to some history podcasts.
Did you
actually.
really?
Yeah. One of them is just like stuff you missed in history class.
Oh, that's cool.
One of them is, you've probably heard of this one. It's pretty big. Stuff you should know. Have you heard that one?
No.
It's actually pretty cool. Like they talk about just everything. Like, I listened to one on the Statue of Liberty and how like it really came to be in the States.
Really?
Versus like what we think and remember.
Uh-huh.
And then they like did a deep dive into the Titanic and like what actually like was covered in like the movie we saw, and then like what actually happened. And then
Speaking of the Titanic, did you hear the conspiracy theory around the Titanic? Like allegedly the Titanic that sunk wasn't the Titanic. Apparently there was like 3 ships.
there was 3. There was they called one, they were going to call one the Gigantic.
Oh, that's
And they ended up
garbage.
not, because it was going to sail after the Titanic.
Uh-huh.
And then there was one, 3. The other sister one sailed before the Titanic, and it was called, oh shoot, now I can't remember. I have to re-listen to it now.
Sure. But
I haven't heard that. They didn't say that
The
in the...
conspiracy was like when it sunk, it wasn't the Titanic. Like they counted windows and all that and levels, and it wasn't the Titanic.
Yeah, but like, how
but it was
can
like an
you be-
insurance thing apparently.
Oh.
I don't know enough. It was
it's
just
a conspiracy.
it's a
And I listened to they talked about the huge conspiracy theory, the Philadelphia Project, right? Is that what it is?
Philadelphia Project.
Or what is it called? The one that you had told me about, where they ship that weird things started happening and people.
Oh, yes.
Is that the Philadelphia?
I don't know if this is Philadelphia Project, but it
What do
was
they
the
call
conspiracy theory that there was this mummy that they auctioned off
No, you're thinking of a
in
different
Egypt that went on a ship.
one. No.
And then the ships, everybody on that was involved in the thing, like the person who bought it died. The person who
Oh
purchased it
no,
again
no, no!
died.
This is the one. It was like a Navy ship.
Mm.
Was it a? No, it wasn't a submarine, was it? I can't remember now. Gosh, my brain is just. Anyway, it was the one where like they try to like make it disappear.
Oh.
You were the one that told me about this. You can't remember?
No, I never told you about a ship that disappeared.
Yeah, you did. You're like, there's this crazy conspiracy theory about like, it was like a naval ship, and they tried, like the whole conspiracy is they tried to like make it disappear, and apparently like people were saying it traveled back in time because all this weird stuff started happening, and everybody that was on the ship started like, they came once they like the ship disappeared and it came back. It like people had lost like limbs or like weird things like that.
I promise you I never shared this with you, but I'm already fascinated. I want to sign up.
I am like
and I bet
1,000% you're the one that told me about it, unless I listened to it on another podcast and then
probably
this one kind of like, okay.
Now
well,
I'll tell you
you'll
something.
have to listen to
Now
it.
I'll tell you something. As a conspiracy theorist, connoisseur, now not a believer, but just a connoisseur, I am willing to predict that ship story, perhaps, that you're talking about, I bet you had something to do with the Bermuda Triangle, right? Because all the planes
No,
are
it
disappearing
was in
it.
Philadelphia. That's what it was called, the Philadelphia Project.
Why do you keep saying Philadelphia?
Philadelphia. I
Isn't
don't
it
know. I have a hard time.
Philadelphia?
Philadelphia?
You keep saying Philadelphia. Like
Philadelphia.
a Dalphia flower, I think. Like,
You're thinking of a dahlia.
oh, so this is a podcast of We Don't Know Jack.
We don't know how to speak or pronounce words. People, write us a list of words that you want us to pronounce. It'll be a fun podcast.
It's me teaching
Philadelphia,
you words.
yeah. Oh,
Two
gosh.
blind mice, man. The
I
blind
know.
leading the blind. What was I going to say?
But yeah, I think you did spark that because I'm like, I want to like now know more. And yeah, when I'm talking to people, I do feel dumb sometimes not knowing what they're talking about. And then just being caught up on current events, I think is really important too.
Current events can eat it. Events, yeah, you could suck it because there's a lot of drama and negativity and a lot of it is...
I mean just being caught up in like what's happening in the world around you, not just being like naive.
Oh, did
to
you
it.
hear we left Afghanistan? Is that needy?
No, like even like the space thing you were talking about, like Elon Musk in space, like Jeff Bezos is the one I was thinking of, going to space. Like things like that where like you see it on just media, even social media, but just knowing like what's going on.
Right. One of my favorite
you.
things is because listen, not only did we not have interest when we were younger to learn these things, but we also probably didn't have the best teachers, right? Like people who probably didn't like their jobs or weren't as great. Listen, and
my parents like back then didn't like try to help foster that in us as kids. They didn't know.
Well, they're trying to escape communism. Give them a break. Okay?
Well, they were already in the States, so they were safe.
So what you're saying is get to work.
But now I feel like my parents are like very interested in.
Oh, your dad's so like well educated in business,
politics.
Because he's like, okay, this guy's getting elected. Oh man, business is gonna suck. We're gonna.
They
sell
know
off.
now. Yeah,
Oh,
they're very
really,
interested. My dad just watches like all the news stuff so much right now. All the time it's on at home. But before it wasn't like that. It was like we didn't really know anything about anything.
I don't know anything about nothing.
Nothing.
The best part though, and this is the equivalency of like if you're talking to Kyle about bourbons, and every bourbon drinker will tell you like the best, because you can go spend thousands of dollars on bourbon, but like the best ones like when you find hidden gems that people don't know that don't break the bank, right? So the same way hidden gems, when in terms of like learning something, it's the best when you find either podcasts or audiobooks or YouTube channels that are able to be excellent teachers in a small amount period of time.
Yes. Give you like a 30-minute window of like, okay, you ingest this and you're like, well, okay, I feel like that was a good use of my time. So
like for me, I love Neil deGrasse Tyson and the way he teaches, because he's such an animated person that it's like he's sharing campfire stories. Like you can't help but getting sucked in. But here's the problem. So was a couple of weeks ago or a week or so, I went to Seattle to go get you your car, and I planned ahead because I was like, I'm going to be driving this thing back. So I downloaded a book on audiobooks on Audible, and I remember Neil deGrasse promoting it, and it's a book that he wrote. It's called Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. And boom, the title sold me. I was like, I want to dabble into it. I think I needed another book to like prepare me for that book. because there's a terminology that he's spinning.
Because he's trying to do it in such a short period of time.
Yeah,
where
and
it's
he's got like a chapter on gravity. He's got a chapter on dark matter in space, a chapter on, and he'll use words that you're not comfortable with to explain ideas. I was going to say premises.
Yeah,
to explain ideas, and it's definitely something that you have to get that book and then audiobook, and then just like stare at a wall and slowly listen to it. You can't be driving your car like on a road trip and dissecting it. Like it's, because you have to envision a lot of stuff that you don't know. Like he'll just explain how meteorites work, and gray matter, for example, and like or dark matter, which they have, space has both dark matter and gray matter. And they're like, well, it's not this because it doesn't have neutrons, and doesn't have that because the electrons don't exchange. And you go,
you're trying to follow.
Wait, how do electrons work again?
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
Go back one more step, please.
Right. I'd rather hear Neil talk about. Look, I'm on personal levels with him, like Neil. I call him Neil.
Neil.
I don't say the full name. That's how
because
baller.
he's just Neil to you.
But when Neil, I would prefer Neil to like share things like teach you something in just conversation, not in a lecture.
Yeah. It's a different kind of, like, it's different the way you digest that versus.
Oh, correct, right? Because I think those are the best times is when you learn
remember
something and then you're so excited about it and you're animated that when you tell somebody about it. And I think this is why you would throw around the idea that I would be a good teacher. I think it's because I got so excited about that thing that I learned. And when you have a passion behind something that you learned, you can't help but, because remember explain the premise with an example. When you learned about the Ottoman Empire, you didn't have somebody go, oh my gosh, you would never believe what happened. This was crazy. And can you believe they were doing this? No, they said the Ottoman Empire was between this and that and was predated after the Turkish Empire. And then you're like, what? Where are we? What are we doing?
Right.
But if somebody's so gung-ho and excited, then they can't help but share their level of excitement for what they learn, then you as on the receiving end are like your eyes are beating. You're receiving all the information and
it's definitely how it's explained to you. Is like how you'll remember it.
If you're not passionate about it, if you're not excited about it, if you're not like that's.
We also have to be willing to receive that information and want to know.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick, she's on Rogan's quite a bit. She's I think biologist, but like in health and nutrition. But every time she breaks down these studies, like these personal studies that she does on omega-3 fatty acids and how it's how it's used in utero and fish roe and how much is that being absorbed through. Like all these things, she's so excited to share and debunk things that you can't help be like, oh, I guess I'm into health and nutrition now.
I love this.
Right. And that's why you used to tease me about it, about I get so excited about things that I always pick up new hobbies. Like first it was like ATV or Jeeping. Remember, I got a Jeep and like I'm like excited about off-roading and stuff like that. So I'm watching nothing but off-road stuff, and then I'm excited. I watch nothing but gun stuff. Then I'm excited like nothing but Porsche stuff. Then I'm excited hunting. And so I think when there's a technique and a fundamental and just a skill set behind a particular thing, all of that can be taught. And like I'm fascinated by something that could be taught. It's not luck. For you to drive a car 200 miles an hour on a track and make a record-breaking time, that's not luck. That's pure skill set. And I want to see why that person, what skill set are they, what techniques are they implementing to do that?
Do you feel like you being passionate about stuff was always there for you, or do you feel like that happened later on in life?
Later, after personal development, I think.
I wonder if your mom would disagree, because I feel like Beckham has that, whatever you have inside of you. And so that's why I'm like, I think it's a lot of it is your personality. A lot of it is. And then a lot, some of it is you wanting to learn and grow, and like, it's like you form this habit of like being passionate about things. But I know Beckham has that from you, because he gets so excited about everything. A new thing happens. It's like all that's on his mind for the next whatever day that, like those airplanes, like rockets, for instance. Like he was obsessed with the model rockets for a little bit of time. And that's all he could talk about. All he could think about. It was like, Mom, when are we going to do that? When are we going to do that? When can you buy that for me? Can we do it now? Can we do it again? And I'm like, back up. Like, is there anything else? Like, you want to think about it. And then he goes through these like phases of things of just being obsessed with it.
But I think those things are just things that he's already, every little boy is excited about.
But
He just has
Jack
it on the
doesn't
next
have
level.
that.
Well, that's the next
That's what
level,
I'm saying.
right?
He has these like, he's just passionate about things. And
Right.
I'm like, oh, you're like your dad. You just get really passionate about like a certain hobby or thing. And he's just like, yeah, he's obsessed.
So I wonder, and this is strictly a theory by examining just two test subjects, myself and him. And I wonder if it has something to do with when you don't excel in academics, you show no interest in academia. Jack excels in it. And so he shows interest in it. So he has to almost like share his energy level across the board to just kind of pace himself. Unless it's video games, which you found something else that's like, it's a release, right? With Beckham, he has no interest in academia, but he's compensating elsewhere, and that is combustible engines of rockets and
Creating things. And,
right.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, that would make sense. That's where he's like transferring his energy of like just being excited about
what's
something.
your thing? And so
Yeah.
he has now the bandwidth. So I almost argue that Jack doesn't have the bandwidth to get gung-ho about rockets, right? Though he loves learning about, like we're driving the other day and they're talking about some animals, and Jack's like, oh, well, they're a mammal. Did you know that? And they're a herbivore. And I'm like, what do you like? He'd watch a National Geographic lesson, and then he's using it willy-nilly in a conversation. Right. And here I am trying to figure out how to use premise in the right context, just waiting for opportunities to set it up.
I mean, now you've got to say it.
I swear one of these days somebody's going to say something and I'm going to be like, that's an interesting premise, and I'm going to use it correctly.
Yeah.
I'm going to use it correctly.
You should like look it up and like the like examples of the word in a sentence.
I remember.
And just like remember those examples and make sure word by word.
I should have word of the day. I remember being probably 15 years old, and I was hanging out with my cousins in Seattle, and they had a group of friends that would come over, and they were older. This particular guy that was coming over hanging out with another group was probably in his like mid to upper 20s, and keep in mind I was like 15. So, and I remember talking to him multiple occasions, but he would be so slow in conversations. Like he would be like, I'd be like, hey man, what do you do for work? Well, I work for so-and-so. I was like, oh, what do you do there? Well, I'm in, and then you see him trying to figure out words. And I remember talking to my cousin and be like, hey, is he weird? Why do you talk like that? And I remember she's telling me, she's like, well, he wants to expand his vocabulary. So he's thinking of using those words that he learned, these like bigger, stronger words. And I was like, that's probably me trying to like have a word of the day and search.
You should have a word of the day.
I used to have things like I would write down on my notepad. And I mean, a lot of these words are because being an immigrant, like you were never really explained those words, but like
to look them up,
like pessimist. I wrote down pessimist. I was like, look up pessimist, and I was like, oh, okay.
Recently?
That's a year ago for sure. Pessimist was a year ago.
Really?
Under pessimist was like anti-Semitic, and I was like, why am I keep hearing anti-Semitic? And then I looked. I was like, oh, okay, that's what that means. Nobody sits you and explains to you. That's not a.
I mean, the way we learn words is context.
Right.
Even as kids, it's all context based. So like if you hear a word but like you don't know what it means, usually it's because it's either like too broad in like context, or it's just like it's hard to like decipher like what.
Well, here's a perfect example for too broad of a context. I keep hearing, I don't know what kind of content I'm consuming, but like I would hear multiple conversations of people saying like, oh, there were like these anti-Semitic statements, and I'm like, what kind of statements? What are those?
Because it could be anything. Yeah, that's very broad.
Yeah, it's very specific.
And nobody's gonna like specifically say
right
anti-Jewish.
Right.
So it's I feel like there's still some that I'm like I probably should look up, but I can't. Like for me, like I think of I hear a word, I don't know it. I kind of just like assume what it means based on context, but there's some that I don't know, and then I just like it kind of like flies away.
For lack of well, you're also you're far more you're better educated than I am in terms of like academics. I just all of my knowledge is like through podcasts and just things that I would hear, through digital content that I'm consuming. A lot of your information.
Which I mean, now that's learning. That's like, I mean, that's like going to class basically, like we did back in the day in like college. But now you could just hear content and different topics anywhere, which is kind of awesome.
And I think that's why it's so important to kind of educate yourself on just being a more well-rounded, informed person all around, whether it's astronomy, whether it's nutrition, whether it's geopolitical issues, whether it's intermittent fasting. Like once you have thank you. I don't know if you noticed, but I've been pumping the brakes on.
You have.
Yeah.
I feel like I say alien more than you do lately.
She is just what? Enough with the alien talk.
Gosh, just twice in one podcast.
They're not real. Okay. They're unidentified. Yeah.
I feel like
Use an
the
example,
older
please.
I get, the more I am actually having a harder time coming up with words in my like daily vocabulary and sentences. Do you find that? I feel like I've always, and that's another thing going to the bilingual thing is just since I've been little, I've always had such a hard time finding the perfect word I'm thinking of in my speech.
Well, the problem is I think you actually think about what you're going to say versus me. I just start
just saying
talking.
it. And maybe that's it. Maybe I think too much about what I want to say. And so I want to find this like perfect word that I'm like, that's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't come up with it. And nothing else will work except that word. And then I'm just sitting there going, and like snapping my finger. And I do that. I feel like I do that so much where I'm looking at you and going, what's that word I'm thinking of? And you're like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, what is that word? And it's like, I need to know because it's going to bother me.
See that? I think it's because you're too smart. I think if you were less smart like me.
Oh, thank you so much.
I think if you're less smart like me, just use examples. I think you and I
true.
need to.
We need to switch.
We need to switch some
Use
techniques.
Our tactics.
I need to slow down and think, and I think you just need to. If you can't find,
but I feel like I come across sometimes like not intelligent or not educated because I can't come up with a word, and because I do that so often, where I'm like talking, and then I'm like stuck. And people are just looking at me and I'm like, oh, what's that word I'm thinking of? Sometimes it's not even like a very big or hard word.
Sure.
It's just one that didn't come to my brain.
But I wonder if there's a part of you, because you're not a stubborn person. You're a competitive person. And I wonder if you're just competitive against yourself.
Like, I need to know this. I need to remember this.
So I know a lot of these examples that you're talking about where you have been just like stuck and looking for me for what you're trying to articulate. Oh, that specific word.
Or not even like a word. Sometimes it's almost like an idea or a phrase.
But the problem is I always think of like a person's attention.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I'm constantly looking at analytics on YouTube, like how do I create content that people, I'm always feeding into people's attention spans. That's where I make my money, is people's attention spans. And so I have a little bit of a better gauge of a person's attention span. So with you, you're not constantly doing that. So when you are looking for that word, well, you're not realizing you just spent 12 seconds looking around. And the person's
That's what I'm saying. That's why.
And you don't come off uneducated. I think you come off boring. You know what I mean? Well, not boring, but like you're not as that person is like, they lost interest.
Yeah.
Most people go,
done.
I don't care what that perfect word is now. You know what I mean? So I think you just need to get better about just dropping it and use an example.
Right. I don't know where I'm going. Okay.
Like, yeah, if you go like, oh, what am I thinking? Well, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you'll do this thing and you're like, that's enough to draw a person's attention back.
I don't think about like using an example. I just like, my thoughts are so like linear. I have to finish this thought, start the next one. Like, isn't that weird?
I'll give you like a dose of my like ADD and you'll be like throwing examples here and there.
I know. I'll just like remember what you.
Just abandon. Because think of the people like, okay, are they going to be interested? We're 12 seconds deep. Like, I'm still thinking of the word. Just drop it. If you can't recall, go to an example. Boom.
That should be my next, like, immediate.
Should be immediate thing. Can't remember it? Okay. You know what I mean? Like, just do that.
Yeah. Except if it's mid-sentence, you can't say, you know what I mean?
No. Not know what I mean, but like use an example and then you can
say,
follow
you know
up.
what I mean? You always got to follow up with that so that people know or can tell you if they know what you mean.
And half the time they want to know what you mean,
But they don't.
and they'll lie to you so we could be over with the story.
There's like boring, and then there's just like over it.
Over it. This is
Cool.
fun.
I was following, and now I'm not. But yes, I do know what you mean.
But we got there. We got there.
I know what you mean.
This has been fun. I actually didn't know what we were going to talk about today, and look, we just.
I know. Look at us.
it just-
That was a very intelligent conversation.
that was a sophisticated.
What would you say the premise of this?
Because that's the right way of saying it, man. You
I
should've-
use it like the premise behind like an action or like a story, or like that's what I use premise as.
You know, I'm going to tell Kyle now. Every time we'll shoot videos, I'll be like, "We need a premise behind this."
What is the premise behind this video?
Just like.
I love it.
A
I would
breakdown.
love to have heard how you used it the few days ago.
That's what I told you. I
With
told
the
you.
brain.
I gave you the example.
That's exactly what
That's
you said.
exactly what I said. I said like, well, you know, the premise of the example premise. No, if we're gonna stick to the premise of your example, like, what? Okay,
The premise of your example.
yeah.
I mean, you could kind of get away with it. but
sure. You know,
Hopefully, you just like flew past.
it
them.
felt right. It looked like it because it was like 9 people on a Zoom
And
call.
also, if you felt confident in the way you were saying it,
confident.
it's fine.
If
Confidence
you're
is key.
confident, I think, and you have good ideas, because I think I shared a pretty good idea for the projects that they wanted to come up with. When you're so confident about it, the person receiving that,
almost overlooks.
not even there. I think they start doubting what they thought that word meant.
Like, whoa, he said that really confidently. That must be the right.
I
way to
must
use the
not
word.
be using it in the right context. You know,
And
what I
then
mean?
they're gonna start using it out of context, and that's how
And that-
misinformation is spread.
Exactly.
Oh, good.
Fake it
That's
till you make
good.
it.
Yeah, you're good
Uh,
at that too.
Thanks.
I'm not good at that.
Thanks. Well,
I feel like people can see right through me.
when somebody says you're good at faking it, that means you're good at lying. That's all
No,
it
you're
is.
good at like fluffing.
Fluffing. Yeah.
I'm good at fluffing pillows. That's about it.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a job for everybody. Kidding. All right, let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
This is fun. This has been a fun talk. These LaCroix taste delicious.
These are the last 2 LaCroix in the
We're-
fridge.
We're going to take the kids to Florida for a few days. I heard that's COVID Central. I'm kidding. No, it's not. We're going to have fun. We're going to make memories. And I'm excited to not make videos for a little bit until we come back.
Little vacay
All right.
for the fam.
Cheers to the vacay.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.